Hello and welcome to the Continue Watching live chat. I am here with Matt. Say hello, Matt.
Hey y'all.
And Matt, before we get started, I would like to register a complaint.
Again, this is a running theme, but I'm happy to take your complaint.
Okay? I only complain to you because I know you'll take it straight to the top.
Absolutely.
So there's this takeout restaurant that we go to about once a week. And like I said, it's a takeout place. There's maybe like 4 seats in the whole restaurant. The idea is that you call in, place your order, you drive over, you pick it up, you take it home and eat it. And this is a place that makes basically like rice bowls, right? So like chicken bulgogi bowls, and teriyaki salmon bowls, sesame chicken bowls, and then you have a selection of sides that you can choose from. And they also have some appetizers, one of which is like a crab rangoon stick. It looks like an egg roll, but it's a crab rangoon. And they're very, very good. Like, I've had lots of crab rangoon in my life from lots of different, Chinese restaurants and other, takeout places. But honestly, theirs are the best. And I'm not exactly sure why. They're not like homemade or anything. I'm sure they buy them in frozen and just kind of deep fry them to order. But at any rate, they are very good. But my complaint is that this place is the only restaurant that I go to on any kind of regular basis where when I call to place my order to pick it up, there's like at least a 25% chance every time that they're going to be out of something. And these aren't like exotic ingredients, right? They're like the crab rangoon or broccoli or green beans, or they make like a macaroni salad, like a Hawaiian macaroni salad side dish that they do make in-house. Like they make it, but they'll run out of that too. And I'm like, why? And this isn't a new place. Like it's been there for at least a year. And how can it be that 25% of the time I call and you guys are out of something? Like, who's running this place? This is not a problem that anyone else has. Just flat out running out of stuff. And it's like I said, it's not exotic stuff that's going to go bad. Like, frozen crab rangoon sticks don't go bad. Like, you just keep them in the freezer a couple extra days. And, broccoli, if you run out of broccoli, just run down to the grocery store and buy more broccoli. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're 100% out, it's either, make your customers upset and paint yourself as unreliable, or go down to the grocery store and buy some, even if you have to pay a little extra
Or
for it. Good grief.
does it look like there's just insane demand, and so now you'll order an hour earlier and be willing to pay more? So maybe it's a
Well,
marketing scheme.
it's not. And let me tell you, today we called and we ordered two orders of the crab. I've never said the words crab rangoon stick so many times in my whole life. We ordered
I don't think
two.
I've ever heard the words before.
Well,
So
you're welcome.
thank
So
you.
we ordered two. It was usually it's just me and my wife, but it wasn't just me and my wife today. So we ordered 2 of the crab rangoon stick appetizers, and each order comes with 3. So order 2 orders, that's 6 crab rangoon sticks in total. So I get to the place to pick them up, and they're like, "Oh, we're really sorry, but we only had 5 crab rangoon sticks, so we're not going to charge you for the second order." Like, they charged me for the first order for the first 3, and then the extra 2 they just gave them to me for free. So it's not saving them money. I mean, they did the right thing and
So
gave it
they're
to me
working
free,
hard to keep the customer,
I
but
guess.
at the same time they're just botching it over and over and over again.
Yeah, like,
Well, this
give me a break.
this does sound super upsetting.
It is.
Um,
So
and
what can
I will take it I'll take it to I don't know, like who's the Secretary of like Agriculture, maybe or businesses. I don't know. I will reach out to the Biden administration and just make sure that they know that somewhere in the middle of America there is not enough broccoli, and they must respond. And I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll be right on it. There's nothing else that big in the world going on. Maybe they're on shipping containers. Maybe that's where all of your frozen food is right
Or
now.
or I might propose that we need a Secretary of Crab Rangoon Sticks. So this can
Uh,
be this. Let's nip this right in the bud.
Absolutely.
They'll have one job only.
I perfect. I think that's entirely reasonable.
Thank you. I'm glad someone agrees with me. So Matt, AMC Plus Black Friday deal, $24 for a year. Do you buy it or no?
So here's the
Two
thing. We
dollars a
have
month.
like
$2 a month.
I know. So it seems like a really good deal, right? Um, but as you start adding up all of these good deals, are they really deals anymore? And is it just cheaper to buy like cable, which nobody's going to buy cable again, let's be honest. I think for me, there's not enough shows that I'm particularly like craving to watch on AMC that I'm going to pay for it. And so I see like some stuff that like, yeah, it looks good. And if it was on a streaming service that like I already had, like if it was on Hulu or I guess it won't be on Disney Plus because I live in America, then yeah, I'd absolutely be like excited to watch those shows. But I'm not going to go out of my way to watch any of these things. But I think if you're like a Walking Dead fan, then like you kind of have to, right? Like it's a no-brainer. Or like Doctor Who, like there's some stuff on there that I guess would be compelling to some people. But for me, I'm going to pass. How about you?
Well, I guess I'm just a sucker. I'm a sucker. I bit hard on it. As soon as I saw it, I was like, $2 a month. That's a no-brainer. So I signed up for it because there are a few things on there I want to watch. Um, I
Well,
did a
Killing Eve. So I'm scrolling through. Killing Eve is a show that I watched the entire first season of, and I would love to watch more of it. I just, there's so much TV on. What's attractive to it? What shows are you attracted to?
Well, before I forget, if you or anyone else subscribes to AMC Plus, there's a show on there I really want to recommend. It's called Back, 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 and it has David Mitchell in it, who you might recognize, and his other co-star that was in Peep Show together. They were in Peep Show together. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But if you watched Peep Show, fairly popular show, then you will be familiar with these two. And Back is, I think, 2 seasons, and each season is not very long, like maybe 5 episodes or something, 5 or 6 episodes long, something like that. I think there's two. I think there's 2 seasons. Maybe it's just the one season. At any rate, it's not a big time commitment, and it's a really good show. And I highly recommend that you at least try it. At least watch the first episode. That's on AMC Plus. I got AMC Plus because there's in particular there's one show on there that I've been hearing over and over from people that they're saying it's very good. It's called Kevin Can Go F Himself, and apparently the concept is pretty out there. I won't go into it just in case people don't want to be spoiled for concept, but it sounds really interesting, and I signed up for that. I signed up for it pretty much just so I could watch that along with some of the other shows that are on AMC Plus. Some of the stuff that's coming up too sounded kind of interesting. I can't remember exactly the titles of them, but it sounded like something that they sound like shows that might at least be worth checking out. They have a few movies on there too that I'm sure that I'll glance. If I watch one movie on there a month, then I'm at least gonna break even, or I'm gonna come out a couple bucks ahead or whatever. I gave up on The Walking Dead like sometime after season 1. I maybe watched a little bit of 2. I doubt I'll
But
go
you can
back to
watch
that.
30 seasons of Survivor.
Yeah, well, that's completely different. How dare you? How dare you, Matt? But yeah, so I bit. Maybe it's not worth the $24. Maybe I'll regret it. It does come with Shudder, the horror genre streaming service that got folded into AMC Plus. It also does come with a live stream of AMC, a live stream of I think Sundance Channel, a live stream of BBC America, and a live stream of IFC. Did I already say that? I think there's
So it has the live stream of BBC America. Does it have
it
like their
does.
archive?
No,
Okay, it
it
does have their
does. It
archive.
does. Yeah. In fact, I was really disappointed that they don't have a live stream of the BBC World News channel that AMC distributes. So AMC is the distributor of BBC America, BBC World News. I think that's what it's called in the United States, which is carried by like Philo and uh, other some some other streaming places. I'm not sure. Sure, like in some cable, like cable outlets and satellite and whatever. But I like that. Like that's a nice alternative to CNN and the rest of the American cable networks.
I
But
like the
anyway,
BBC, or I guess British television in general. I don't know that they're all BBC, but their late night host, I think, are so much better than our American late night host. So that's always something that, like, I'm constantly on YouTube watching, like, Graham Norton, and so to have the opportunity to like watch Graham Norton nightly, or I guess it would be in the morning when it comes on here, but I would absolutely like watch his whole show rather than just do the stupid like YouTube clips thing. So I don't
yeah.
know if his show were on there, maybe I'd be increasingly tempted to get AMC Plus.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I just threw my money away or if it's worth it. It can't be worse than the I did the Paramount Plus yearly
Ugh,
annual
me
subscription a while ago,
too.
and like after this 2 months in, I was like, you know what, this was money wasted because I'm not gonna get my money's worth out of this. But
No,
that's
Paramount
another
Plus has been
topic.
such a disappointment. I mean, let's camp out there for just 1 second. I watched like their 4 hour investor like presentation, and so I also got suckered into the 1 year deal. I bought it, and it's just CBS All Access. They have not provided nearly what they promised yet, and the platform sucks. Which for me is like the great cardinal sin. Is if the platform sucks itself. Who cares about the content? If it's miserable to get the content, and I'm just waiting for the day of reckoning for these streamers that you know uh, are lazy and have not given us a quality service, and then aren't delivering on the content that they teased to get us to sign up. Okay, so end rant. Um,
Well, no, you're not wrong. Like Paramount Plus is definitely the weakest of the mainstream, the more mainstream services, and you're absolutely unless you're a really big Star Trek fan and you live in the United States, then I don't really know what the value proposition is there. I mean, they have a lot of Star Trek stuff, and if you're into it, then it's probably it's worth it. But if you're not, I mean, if you don't live in the United States, most of the Star Trek stuff is like on Netflix overseas and in other on other streamers or whatever. But that's getting ready to end. So really, I don't understand if you unless you're
it's
into
the
Star
Nick.
Trek, I don't really know. I mean, I guess they do have the Nickelodeon, like all the Viacom content. So they have like the Nickelodeon stuff and the SpongeBob and the whatever. So if you have kids, maybe that's a draw.
Yep,
But I don't know.
that's what gets me.
Yeah,
As much as I hate the platform, as long as it's at all reasonable. My son is addicted to Paw Patrol, and I'm just going to keep feeding that addiction. So
yeah,
they got me suckered in until he outgrows Paw Patrol.
yeah. So moving on, Hulu Live. Speaking of kids programming, Hulu Live has a lot of that. Hulu Live has increased their prices. They
Yeah.
raised everything up about $5. Hulu Live will now though, and so to be clear, Hulu Live is now $70 a month if you want the Hulu catalog with ads. So Hulu Live with ads is $70. Hulu Live with no ads is $76 a month. So they raised everything by about $5, but they are including Disney Plus and ESPN Plus in the package. Matt, is this a good deal?
I mean, I hate Hulu, and I've long hated Hulu. But as somebody who already pays for Hulu, and I think I still have like 18 months of, or maybe even 2 years still of Disney Plus, because I did the Verizon deal and I had already bought the 3 year deal. I think it is a good deal. But it does make me wonder if Disney Plus is just going to get absorbed into Hulu more or less. And for me, my big issue with Hulu is the streaming platform. So if I have to try to watch Disney Plus shows in Hulu, now I just pay the extra $10 to get Disney Plus proper and avoid the Hulu platform if you can. I don't know. I'm constantly trying to minimize my exposure to Hulu's user interface, and they've made some improvements in the last couple of years, but overall, when they redesigned it maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they just really screwed it up, and I'm still bitter and angry. So, if you're a sports watcher, if you watch Disney shows like I do, and you don't care about user interface, then yeah, it's a great deal. But I don't think it's the best product available.
Well, to circle back to what you said about the interface on Hulu, honestly, I feel like none of the streamers, like literally none of them have a good interface. Like they all are bad in one way or the other. And so I honestly don't find Hulu to be any better or worse than any of the others, including Netflix and HBO and all the rest. I think for me, Hulu is just the same as any of the other ones. So I don't mind
I couldn't
that.
get over. I know they've done away with it now, but when they had the overline to select things, that just killed me. Like, underline, please, for the love of God.
Well, that was yeah.
It was like the unforgivable sin, and it took them years to fix it. I'm petty. That's what we're learning. I'm petty.
Well, okay. So putting that aside, you're putting your pettiness aside. Hulu. Okay, so what does Disney Plus cost now per month? Is it $8 now?
Yeah, it's still
Is it $7.99?
pretty cheap.
Is it because it was cheaper and they raised it? I mean, they've raised it $1 since it launched. If someone in the chat knows what it costs right now,
it's $8 a month or $80 a year in the U.S.
Okay, so let's stick with the monthly stuff. That's $8. ESPN Plus is what, $6 a month?
ESPN, yeah, they're kind of like the Paramount though. They're $7 a month.
$7. Okay, so 7 plus 8 is 15. Check my math here. And let's say Hulu with ads is how much a month? Is that $7? $8?
Hulu with ads. So wait, ad-supported Hulu is $7 a month.
Okay, so now we're at 22. So if you have Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN, you're paying $22 for that. So that's that right? 22. So
it's $120.
Well, no. So you take
right?
so if you pay for Hulu Live, that's 70. So 22 of that is your Hulu, like your catalog Hulu, your Disney Plus, and your ESPN Plus. So you're paying $58 for the live content. Is $58 worth it for live content? I mean, it depends, right? Like, I don't know.
It depends.
Yeah.
I think for me, like my family has the live Hulu, but we do that for the Sharks games. And every time the Sharks season's over, I'm like, I want to downgrade back to like normal Hulu.
Yeah.
So if the sports we don't care about isn't available, yeah, we're not paying for live.
I mean, sports is the big value add to the live packages. I think there's no doubt about that. If you are even remotely interested in sports content, then you're, for the most part, going to find that on a live service. I mean, unless you watch certain soccer. Soccer's basically the only sport that I can think of that you can do a pretty good job of following almost all of the major soccer leagues just on a streaming, whether it's between Peacock or ESPN Plus. Between Peacock and ESPN Plus, there's a lot of soccer on there. So if you're a soccer fan, you're pretty good. And Paramount Plus.
Yep.
Oh yeah, they have like the Spanish, the German league, or the French league or something. At any rate, so $58 for the live stuff. So if you're into sports, that's probably you're probably going to find that to be worthwhile.
Cable news is the other one.
Yeah. I don't know. $58 is $58. It's hard for me to say one or the other. I pay it. I mean, it's like I can't look down on people that do it because I do it, and I don't get $58 worth of value out of it. Even though this is not the paradigm right now. Like I don't get ESPN Plus and Disney Plus thrown in with my Hulu Live. Of course, I don't pay quite as much, but I do pay extra for the stupid DVR, enhanced DVR thing. At any rate, I'm paying way too much to watch Jeopardy and Survivor and Tough as Nails and movies on TCM. It's not. I don't get my money's worth, but they have. It's that or nothing. You know, there's no real good alternative to get the content that I want. If I want to watch live, like if I want to watch Survivor live, then this is the only way to do it. If I want to watch it the next day, I can do that on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, no, it is. It's the issue
I take that
with,
back. I'm sorry. I have to correct myself. If I did want to watch Survivor live, I could watch that on Paramount Plus, but I would have to sit through the commercials and I couldn't pause it, which
yeah,
becomes a
no.
deal breaker for me.
Yeah, no, the live and then when you can up it to like live and commercial free and the stuff that's not live, it's the convenience that we end up paying for. It's not worth it, but there isn't another good option at this point in time. When you start to look at the sports stuff, I remember years ago, so my family, we follow hockey more than anything. And so I was looking at the NHL app for the Apple TV, and it's gorgeous. It's beautiful, except they block out our local team. So because I live in like the same market as the team that we care about, I can't use the NHL app or like that subscription.
Right.
But if I lived like on the other side of the country and wanted to see a San Jose Sharks game, like I would absolutely have the NHL app and forget Hulu Plus. So I'm just waiting for like the sports leagues to kind of figure this out and say like, why are we paying, or like why are we taking money from ESPN and all these other places when we can just own our own streaming rights and build our own platform and just lean into that. It seems like that's the direction that the major sports leagues should go, is offer the better experience to their fans through their own app rather than forcing us to have to deal with Hulu.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's the same thing for baseball.
Yeah,
You know, if I lived not if I live somewhere else, if I want to watch my local team, I have to jump through all the hoops of the RSN. Jump through the hoops of whatever the RSN wants me to do. Whether they want me to watch it on cable, I can watch it on cable, I can watch it on satellite, I can watch it on DirecTV now, like DirecTV, whatever the DirecTV streaming thing is called these days. It's terrible. I can't even remember what it's called because they've changed the name of it so many times. And that's it. You know, I can't watch it on Hulu Live, can't watch it on YouTube TV, can't watch it on Fubo, can't watch it through like Charter has a streaming service that does not offer any of the RSNs. So yeah, so it's the same thing. So if I lived across the country, if I lived in New York, I could watch my local team because the whole thing is stupid. Everyone knows it. DirecTV stream, thank you, Devin. So the whole thing is dumb. I don't know if it's objectively worth the money, but if you want it, you're gonna pay it because it still is the most convenient way. I mean, it's way more convenient than getting into bed with the cable company and having to deal with their shoddy DVRs and whatever their aging hardware.
yeah,
Anyway, but the interesting strategy. So let's shift this a little bit. It's an interesting strategy though for Disney to say we're just going to charge everyone extra $5, and then they're all going to have access to Disney Plus and ESPN Plus, and that looks good for their stats. Like when they have to go to these investor meetings and these quarterly earnings calls, they can say, you know, look at all this growth we showed in the fourth quarter on Disney Plus and ESPN Plus. I guess.
yeah.
I don't know what that gets them in the long term, but in the short term, it's going to get them a big bump. Although Wall Street's not dumb; like they're going to know exactly what they did to get those numbers, and they'll know that they can't replicate that. That's a one time. You know, they flip the switch once, and then they're going to pick up the numbers, and then they can't do it again. And they're probably going to lose some people too. Some people aren't going to want to. Some people just don't care. They all they're going to see is that the price went up $5, and they don't care about Disney Plus, and they don't care about ESPN Plus. All they care about is, their cable news and their their Jeopardy and their football games on Sunday night.
Well, I haven't been paying close enough attention to this until you brought it to my attention. But if like I've already paid for Disney Plus for years, and I'm currently paying for Hulu Live, so I now have Disney Plus double time.
Yep, me
I'm
too.
now paying for it. So as a customer, that kind of pisses me off.
I think
So
they'll transfer it if you contact them and explain it to them. They'll buy you out of your Disney Plus
oh, they
subscription.
will.
Yeah, so like
Okay.
whatever they'll take. So like me and you both did the 3 year offering
Yep.
when they offered it through the D23 or whatever. So you'll let them know, and so we have there's about a year left on that. Yeah, exactly a year
There's
left on that
unless
three
you
year.
also do the Verizon deal, and then you have 2 years.
Yeah, I didn't do that. I don't have Verizon.
Yeah.
So I think what they'll do is they'll take whatever you paid for the 3 years and they'll prorate it and then they'll refund that back to you.
Yeah. I think part of the reason why Disney has, or maybe not has to, but is wanting to do this is so much, like with so many streaming services, you need a massive group of eyes to watch shows to help them blow up to get attention to then like further propel your platform. So like Netflix has done a pretty good job of having some significant hits that get a lot of media attention and award season attention. And Disney Plus has gotten some of that, and Hulu has as well. But I think as they're trying to beat out market share of Hulu, they're trying to group as many of their products together as possible to justify like the attention and eyeballs, right? So
Well,
rather than dividing the market,
I think
I
what
guess
it's
it makes sense.
to my mind, it's really about reducing churn. So if you can take
Yeah.
all these packages and you combine them into one, people are less likely to dip in and out month by month because when they do dip out, they're dipping out of a lot, right?
Yeah.
They're not just canceling ESPN Plus. They're also canceling Disney Plus, and they're also canceling Hulu, and they're also canceling Hulu Live. So it's not just a choice of, gee, I don't want to pay for Disney Plus this month because there's no Marvel stuff on. It's I'm going to cancel if I cancel Disney Plus, I'm canceling all the other stuff, and so the idea is that they wouldn't cancel, and so that reduces their churn and improves things for them. The real problem here for me is that these streaming services such as Hulu and Netflix and the others really are positioning themselves in such a way that unless they're growing by quite a bit every quarter, then that's considered a failure. Where that's really, that's a short-sighted viewpoint where, if you're not growing by 20% every quarter, that's fine. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Like streaming is going to be the way people watch TV and movies from now until when is that going to end? Like what, you know what I mean? Like it's not, people aren't going to go back to physical media or anything. It's going to be streaming from here on out. So, it'd be better if they would concentrate on things that will improve the service and the quality of the service and the quality of the content for years down the road, instead of these kind of tricks where they're going to juice their numbers for a quarter or two by doing whatever they're going to do. And really, I think the only major streaming service that I can think of that's doing this is Apple TV Plus, because they have chosen to not get a back catalog of stuff. They're not licensing content from Warner or from anyone else. Apple TV Plus is building a catalog from the ground up, from scratch, a little bit at a time. Whatever, 10 shows a year or whatever they're doing, releasing them week by week, because I think they get it that Apple TV Plus may not be a hit in year 1 or year 2 or year 3, but once they get to year 12 or year 15 and they have 15 years worth of original content that they don't have to pay extra for, Apple TV does a show like Foundation, and they may be the numbers that are being thrown around that I'm hearing is that they're spending about $5 million per episode for Foundation. And so the thing is, though, they spend $5 million an episode for Foundation, so 10 episodes, so $50 million. But that's a show that's a show they've spent $50 million on, and they have it forever. Like, people can watch it this year and the year after and the year after and the year after, and they're not paying extra. They're paying a one-time fee up front, and that will never go away. It's not licensed content. And so
there's no residuals either. So
yeah,
it's not like actors are getting however much actors get on residuals.
yeah.
So
I mean, they pay once and they use it forever, and that's a very different strategy than everyone else has used, with perhaps the exception of HBO. But HBO does license a ton of content. But I think HBO, I don't know, I've had this argument before, but I feel like HBO, the big value of HBO is their original content. Other people think it's their licensed movies, and I won't rehash the argument. But at any rate,
I would agree with you. Other than Friends,
yeah.
I think there's the fact that now, if you want to watch Friends, you have to get HBO Max. Maybe their value is now some of their licensed content.
Yeah. At any rate, interesting for me to see that Apple TV Plus seems to be the only one that's thinking very, very long term.
And Apple TV is in a unique spot because Apple, the way they do billing, like they see churn, like they understand all these other companies' churn rates, or most of these other companies' churn rates, because a lot of the billing gets run through Apple. So they probably have lots of data and info, so that they're probably feeling pretty confident about their model because they understand the other companies' models from looking at the data that they possess.
Yeah, I mean, I can't fault them for it. And I really hope they succeed with it, because it's so counter to what everyone else is doing. Everybody is paying hundreds of millions of dollars every year to license content from Sony and Warner and Viacom and other content creating production companies and whatnot, and they've decided that they're just going to do their own thing, and they're going to they're working with high quality people, they're hiring high quality people, they're getting involved with like name brand actors and directors, and they're giving them a lot of control creatively, and they're going to let that take them as far as it will. And I think that's a pretty good strategy. And I think that I think 10 years from now, people are going to look back and think that they were genius to do it. But
yeah, well, isn't that Apple's storyline anyways?
I guess
they're constantly going down that route.
Yeah. So moving on, the new season of Yellowstone. Yellowstone's a TV show, if you don't know, Matt. So Yellowstone, I'm teasing a little bit. So new season of Yellowstone came out, and all these stories immediately appeared in the trades, Variety, and whatever the Hollywood one is, the Hollywood Reporter.
Hollywood Reporter
and Variety, all these stories about Yellowstone premiered, the new season premiered, the massive numbers, the biggest, the most watched show in years and years. And so I wonder, and others have wondered, does this mean that cable's not dead? Because the only way I should have prefaced this by saying the only way to watch it was on like cable or satellite. You could not watch it streaming in like any capacity. It was on the Paramount channel. So I guess I don't know, I don't know if it's carried by any of the streamers. I don't know if it's carried by YouTube TV or Hulu Live or Fubo or DirecTV Stream or whatever it's called. Someone just told me and I've already forgotten. But yeah, so I don't know. That's the question. That's the question people are asking. Does this mean that it's premature to call cable dead? I don't know. Reaction?
Yeah, I don't think it's dead. I mean, it's clearly not dead, but it's also clearly dying. And so right now we're seeing streaming siphoning off customers from the cable channels, and we're going to see it continue to slowly decline. But I think, as we're looking at cable and that model of people buying packages, yeah, it makes sense that there are still people who keep a cable line open and make sure that they have a package that includes whatever channel Yellowstone's on, because they care about the content. Content is and always will be king. Um, and so, yeah, not entirely dead yet, but these are the anomalies. These are the death rattles of a dying industry, I think. And so, um, you know, there's a Yellowstone, and there's probably going to be another couple of new shows that'll get big attention like this before cable's completely done. But by and large, we're seeing more and more and more people are doing away with the cable platforms. So as more and more of us do away with them, you won't have 8 million people to watch a show anymore. So I don't know. I think like the media likes the narrative of like cable is dying, but to declare cable dead, it's too soon. It's too soon. We probably need to wait, I would guess, another decade before cable's really on its way out. And it's a generational thing. My father can't navigate a streaming service at this point in time, but he still knows how to work his cable TV remote. So there's that to play as well. A lot of technology doesn't completely die. It just slowly diminishes into obscurity.
Yeah, I think that going back to something we said before is if sports pivots away from cable only in a big way, then I think that's probably to the final nail in the coffin for cable. Then that will really hasten the end to it. But I'm with you. I think that it's neat that a cable show like Yellowstone got a big audience. But I did tease on the server that if there was ever a show that was going to appeal to people that still are hanging on to their cable subscription, it's probably going to be a show like Yellowstone. Let's face it. This is the demographic, the age demographic this is aimed at is the same age demographic that's still holding on to cable. So yeah, I'm not terribly surprised about it. It's a lot of boomers. Yeah. It's a lot of boomers watching Yellowstone, and that's fine.
Well, and there's still some parts of the country where like you can't get decent internet without having cable TV. So I technically have cable TV, but we don't ever use it.
Oh,
yeah. In order to get, I would have to pay more for my internet speeds if I didn't bundle it with cable. Is that not ridiculous?
That's so weird. Yeah, we don't have that here. Like we can still, if I bundled cable TV with my internet, I would only pay about $30 or $35 more a month, which is cheaper than I can get Hulu Live and all that stuff for. But it's much less convenient. Like the DVR hardware is very bad, and yeah, I don't know. You have to install it and all that stuff, and I'm just not interested. But they do give you a pretty good discount, like that's for sure. It's not like my situation isn't like yours, but it is easy.
Well, I think partly they're doing it because it's like magazines. Like you ever like get magazine subscriptions to your house that you didn't pay for? And it's because they get to claim you as a subscriber. So when they go to advertisers, they're like, we sent out our May issue to 70 million people. Well, yeah, but only 30 of them paid. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of what they're doing here is because it's just ridiculous that it's cheaper for me to have two products than one of which I don't use at all than to get a single magazine individually. So
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So let's talk. Let's change the topic to Marvel, everyone's favorite topic. Scarlett. So if you remember, Scarlett Johansson was involved in a big lawsuit with Disney about Black Widow and basically her paycheck for Black Widow because they released it on Disney Plus.
Yeah, they released it on Disney Plus.
They released it on Disney Plus very shortly after they released it in the theaters, a couple weeks later or whatever. So it was in theaters for a couple weeks, and then boom, they put it right straight onto Disney Plus to rent on there. It was an extra. It was like a premium content or whatever euphemism they're using for that pay extra kind of content. At any rate, so she had sued Disney saying that part of her payout, part of her salary for doing the movie was based on box office returns, and by releasing it on Disney Plus early, the movie would make less at the box office because people would just watch it at home, and so then that cuts into her how much she was supposed to be paid. Did that make sense? Did that come out right?
Yep,
Okay.
that
So
absolutely did.
yeah, okay. So she sued them and it was a big ugly thing and they kind of said some nasty things, or at least semi nasty things in the press towards each other. Disney even accused Scarlett Johansson of being insensitive to COVID or to to the pandemic, being insensitive to the pandemic, and not realizing what it's like out there for everyone caught up in the pandemic situation, which was
And
kind of
can I just say that their new CEO, Bob 2.0, he sucks. I really don't like him.
yeah, he
I thought
does.
it was a low blow.
Yeah.
And Scarlett Johansson, I think, won that battle as she should have. But you don't release the first female, I mean, other than Captain Marvel, but we don't count Captain Marvel. But you don't take like Scarlett Johansson's long-awaited female-driven action movie and then screw her over like that. And then when she's upset and the fans are upset, then try to blame it on her. The dude needs to learn how to read the room. That was not going to go over well.
Well, I absolutely agree with you that Bob Chapek sucks. I'll tell you that he stinks just based on the Disney parks side. Putting,
Yeah.
setting aside all of the other Disney company, all the other interests Disney has, but just some of the changes coming to Disney parks are not ideal, and they're very nickel and dime.
Yeah.
But putting that aside, why don't we count Captain Marvel?
Uh, I think Captain Marvel as a superhero in the MCU, she's too powerful and too emotionally distant. So like her movie was like it was good, it was okay. I find her movie having set up WandaVision and maybe what's to come with the Ms. Marvel's movie far more interesting. But as a standalone film, Captain Marvel was kind of boring, other than the Nick Fury stuff, I thought. And then Captain Marvel, as the way she was used in Endgame, she just was too powerful and nobody cared. It sure felt like she should have been able to defeat Thanos on her own. And so it didn't. Her character just didn't quite make sense for me, the way that she was used in those movies.
Okay. I mean, but yeah, I guess my question was really like, why don't we count that as a big female
as the first
lead?
female?
Yeah.
I guess for me, I guess for me, it just feels like it should have been Scarlett Johansson. So I feel like Scarlett
Okay.
Johansson earned it with her body of work in Marvel. And yes, technically it is Brie Larson or whatever, but that should have been Scarlett Johansson. We should have got Black Widow 5 years earlier than we did.
Okay, I'll agree with you there. That sounds reasonable. Okay. Anything else you want to say about that? Oh wait,
Well,
I didn't get to the point. I didn't even get to
you
the
didn't
point.
get to the point.
So, geez. So Scarlett Johansson, she has this recent history with Marvel, with Disney, the lawsuits, etc., etc. However, just a few days ago, it was revealed that Scarlett Johansson is working with Marvel to produce what they're calling a secret project. Matt, do you know anything more about this?
So I've been digging into this a little bit, and this feels to me like it's going to be a setup for a massive disappointment. Because some people are starting to think like, oh, Scarlett Johansson, feminist, like leader, like woman leader of the MCU. She's going to bring, one of these other female-led franchises into the Marvel universe. So there's thoughts of like an A-Force movie, or you have, I don't know, like she's going to be involved in like more obscure characters like the Blonde Phantom. So like there's all kinds of speculation around that. I don't think we're going to see her producing a flat-out Marvel movie. I think she's a brilliant businesswoman. She's a great actress. She has a ton of fans. It's going to be something that she's in, which tells me that it's not going to be MCU. Like I know they're saying she's producing it, but I think she's going to be screen talent. And so I'm guessing that this secret project isn't a film, or if it is a film, it's going to be a documentary. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's some other initiative, like whether it's some kind of marketing thing that ties the Marvel universe into the theme parks, or some kind of something. But I don't think we're going to see her doing a TV show or movie that furthers the plot of the MCU. But I would be thrilled if I was wrong. What do
Yeah,
you think?
I no, I agree. It's not going to be. It's going to be something. It's probably going to be something that's like a straight to Disney Plus sort of like behind the scenes of the women of Marvel or
Yeah,
something along those lines. I don't think it's going to be like one of the main movies or even one of the main Disney Plus shows. I think it's going to be some kind of special one-off sort of thing.
yeah. Well, we saw this a little bit with Dwayne the Rock Johnson, right? So he's another actor that Disney's, working a lot with on screen. And then he had a couple of Disney Plus shows that he produced that came out over the summer. So I think it's going to be something like that, where when we actually hear it, it'll be like, oh, cool. Like, I'm glad that show exists, but it's not going to be anything that's going to generate the kind of interest that an MCU movie would.
No, I agree. So let's turn the focus on what we've been watching. We just covered I think some of the biggest news that's been discussed on the server. So let's turn our attention to what we've been watching. I can start. Continued to watch Foundation on Apple TV Plus. Watched the finale, the season finale was dropped on Friday, and I watched that over the weekend. I won't give any spoilers, so if anyone's listening that is trying to avoid spoilers, don't worry, I won't spoil it. But I will say my general impressions of the finale were that it was in some places very interesting and very it felt like a good conclusion, and it felt like things were answered, and it felt like it was satisfying. And other parts of it felt very unsatisfying. And I wish I could say more, but I'm not going to. But on Foundation, there's several kind of storylines that kind of take place concurrently, and all of them kind of wrapped up for the season pretty in a satisfying way for the most part, in a way that was both satisfying and left room for season. There is going to be a season 2. It's already been announced. But kind of wrapped up enough to be satisfying, but it left the obvious path forward for season 2, which is fine. I mean, that's normal. You would expect that. But one storyline in particular they'd been kind of building up to a reveal for the end, and then they got to the reveal, and it was just kind of a turd. I thought, like, it didn't land at all. It actually, I think, it created more questions than it answered, which is never what you want to do, I think. And so I was not very satisfied with that. So the finale, if I had to give it a grade, I'd give it like somewhere in the maybe C+ to B- area. Overall, though, I think the season was pretty good. I would give the season itself somewhere in the B+ to A range, probably closer to the B+, because I thought that there were some early episodes that weren't that could have been done a little differently, and the stuff in the middle was all very, very good, and even the penultimate episode was very good, but it was just this finale that I felt a little bit let down by. But they've already announced the season 2, so maybe they can make up for it in season 2. Have you had a chance to check it out at all? I don't know what your level of interest is.
I'm interested in it. I haven't had the chance to check it out. Busy week. But as you're talking about that final, so yeah, season 2 is announced, but they didn't announce it until after the premiere, which just kind of brings me back to like one of these like lingering frustrations I have with streaming services is because they're all filmed and edited and released. There's no real chance for creators to gauge when their series is going to end, right? So at the end of every season, you don't know that you're coming back, usually. And so they do kind of have to tie things up to create some level of closure so that if the one and done is all they got, they're not completely throwing fans out to dry. So I wonder how much the limitations of the way series are getting renewed or canceled is impacting the story, the content of our streaming service shows. So I don't know. That's an ongoing frustration I have. And so it's a bummer to hear that, season 1 of what otherwise sounds like a really strong show kind of faltered, and you have to wonder, had they known they were coming back from the get-go, is that the season 1 finale that you would have had otherwise?
Yeah, it's impossible to know. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about that once we get further down my list here. So something else I've been watching was The Shrink Next Door. That's another Apple TV Plus. That's the show that stars Will Ferrell and Paul Rudd, and is based on a true story that was turned into a podcast, and the podcast is the basis for the TV show. The show continues to be good. I like they dropped the first 3 week before last, and they released a new episode over the weekend, and I think it's very good. I think it's a very good show. I am a little bit nervous that the plot isn't going to move, that they're going to drag out the story a little bit longer than maybe they ought to. I hate to be critical of, that's just kind of my nature, is to be a little bit critical of things. So I don't want to make it sound like that I'm not enjoying it, or I don't think it's a good show. I do think it's a very good show, but I do wonder, because you get the gist of the plot kind of right away, that there's one character that is going to be taking advantage of another character, slowly at first, and then gradually more and more, taking advantage of him in bigger and bigger ways. So you get that, that comes across in the very first episode, and certainly by the end of episode 3, you're like, okay, I can see where this is going. In episode 4, it kind of ups the ante a little bit, but I'm hoping that every episode isn't just gonna show how one character is continuing to take advantage of another character in bigger and in more audacious ways. But we'll see. You never know. You can never tell when a show is going to kind of pivot and kind of go in a new direction. But I do think it's very good. Everyone should at least try it. I'm continuing to watch the British Bake Off, which I know you're watching also. Are you caught up?
I'm not caught up, no.
Okay.
But I think I am on the current season, so I'm almost all the way caught up.
Okay. Well, we're watching them every weekend as they come out, so we are as caught up as one can possibly be. But that show just continues to be a lot of fun to watch, and it's one of my favorite reality shows, if we can. I guess we can call it a reality show, but that show is great, and I continue to look forward to it every week. I watched a movie over the weekend. It's on Hulu. The movie is called Personal Shopper. It stars, what's her name? She's best known for being in the Twilight series. Kristen Stewart. Stars Kristen Stewart. She's the actress you would probably best recognize, although it also stars... Well, no, she's definitely the most known actor in the movie. But but like I said, it's on Hulu. It came out in 2016. It's kind of what they call it, a supernatural psychological thriller. But and that's fair enough. I will say that I had an impression in my mind of what the movie was going to be like in terms of topic and tone. And it was nothing like what I anticipated in terms of topic and tone. And if you like movies that are very suspenseful, in a supernatural kind of way, and move with a very slow and deliberate pace, you would enjoy this. If you like movies that don't exactly hold your hand and keep you kind of thinking the whole time, like, am I seeing? If you enjoy asking yourself, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? And am I understanding it the way that I'm supposed to understand this? And kind of asking yourself those questions as you're watching, and having some of those questions answered gradually along the way, then you'll enjoy it. It's not for everybody, but like I said, it's a slow paced psychological supernatural thriller, although it's light on the thrills. I wouldn't push on that characterization too hard. But it is one of those movies that's kind of not slow, but it does move at a very medium pace the whole way through. And it is one of those movies that really makes you think about what you're watching. So if you're into that, check it out. It's called Personal Shopper, and it is on Hulu. And lastly, I think I will mention, I saved it for last for you, Matt, the OA. So the OA is a show on Netflix. It came out at the end of 2016. It came out in December of 2016. It was created and executive produced by Britt Marling and another partner. Britt Marling, you may have heard of. She's been in other things like she was in Community. She was in an episode of Community. She's in a show called Babylon. She was in some other movies, Another Earth, that was nominated for a lot of independent film awards and whatnot. A really interesting actress and writer and producer. So the OA is a show on Netflix. Like I said, came out in December 2016. Produced by Britt Marling, and Britt Marling is the main character. I believe she is the main character. I've only watched the first 2 episodes. So no spoilers, Matt. I've only watched the first 2 episodes. Okay. Britt Marling is what I believe is going to be the main character. Phyllis, what's her name? Is her name Phyllis? No. The woman who is Phyllis on The Office.
Phyllis on The Office. She's also the voice of sadness on
oh right, yeah. On
yeah, so no, her name is Phyllis Smith though.
That's right. Okay, that threw me off because she's also Phyllis on The Office. Phil Smith is in there, and I was not ready for that, but so far she's been really good in it, and it seems to me to be some pretty clever casting. Jason Isaacs is also in it. Pretty famous actor that you've probably seen him in some other stuff. At any rate, the OA is, I don't really know how to describe it. It was a show that I'd always heard really positive things about, but for whatever reason, I never got around to it. It went for 2 seasons, and then it was my understanding, it was canceled before it was resolved. Like the story was not able to finish. So maybe that was why I didn't begin it. But just on a lark last night, we were kind of searching around for something to watch, and I thought, well, I never did get around to the OA. So I put the first episode of the OA on, and man, we were hooked within like 10 or 15 minutes. It's like an hour long episode. But within 10 or 15 minutes, I was super intrigued. I just wanted to see where this bonkers story is going to go. And just when I thought I had the story kind of figured out, the story takes a sharp turn and turns into something else entirely. And this evening I watched the second episode, and it was great. And man, I just can't wait to see where this story takes me. Matt, I understand that you've seen it and you really like it. I want you to talk about it, but please do not spoil anything.
I'm going to try to talk without spoilers. The impression of the kind of writing and kind of story that you get as like bonkers and things aren't what you think necessarily, that is consistent through the entire series. The writing is really, really compelling, I think. And it's just a really unique, different show. So I was hooked. I watched it when it first came out. And then the second season came out in 2019. So we had to wait like 2.5, 3 years, which was a super bummer, as I was, just anxious to watch it. But even like starting up season 2, I was worried because sometimes when, it's been that long in between seasons, you kind of or out of the groove of a show, but I got hooked instantly into it again. And when they canceled the OA, as you know, it's been canceled. It's one of those shows that had like a significant cult following where people just went a little off their rockers in protesting. So the OA kind of got canceled. We were still doing weird things like when Roswell was canceled, everybody was sending, what was it, like peanuts to the WB or whatever, that kind of protest. There was a woman, I believe it was a woman, who was outside like the Netflix headquarters, like in LA, on a straight up hunger fast that caught like national news. Like there are fans that are like super dedicated to it. And because the show is so weird and twisted, and it does end on a cliffhanger, which I think is pretty well known, there are fans that are constantly looking for signs that it's going to come back. And every once in a while, like somebody involved in the show will like have something on like Instagram or social media that people then like get like it's coming out, it's coming out. So while it's been canceled and Netflix is pretty clear it's canceled and all the creators are pretty clear it's canceled, like last May, like there was significant like, is it coming back? Like, or do we get a surprise season 3? And a surprise season 3 would totally make sense in the world of this this television show. And timing wise, it's kind of makes sense as far as like the time in between season 1 and season 2. And one of the reasons why season 2 took so long is because Britt Marling does like write all the shows as well. So she's not only acting it, which of course I'm assuming, but then she's the writer of it as well. So great art takes time.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. Like if I've watched only the first, like I said, I've only watched the first 2 episodes, but if it can keep this quality up for another 14 episodes, then I'm going to be highly, highly impressed, and I won't even be mad if the story isn't wrapped up all the way because I'm buckled in for the ride wherever it goes.
Kind of where I'm at is, for me, I'm pretty frustrated that we don't get a season 3, but it's one of those shows where even though the ending maybe isn't as conclusive as I'd like, I'll still go back and I'll rewatch season 1 and season 2 because it's that good of a flick. And I can't wait to like, I think I've probably forgotten enough details now that like I'll get to rediscover some of the weird like twist again and just remember like, oh yeah, like that was fun. So anyways, if you have not seen the OA, watch it, but don't just watch it. Write to Netflix and tell them that you'll forgive them of all of their sins and just bring back the OA for a season 3. And the creator has said that she had 5 seasons planned. So there are 3 more seasons that we should get.
Yeah, what a bummer that someone doesn't throw some money at that to bring it back, like Amazon likes to do, and what Roku did with Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Like, someone just throw a bunch of money at her or at that show or whatever, and buy it or buy the rights from Netflix or do something so that we can see the end of the way that the creator intended it to be.
Come up with a TV movie ending, right? Like one more thing.
Yeah.
Though the way season 2 ends is, I don't think I don't know that you could justify wrapping it up in a single movie. But yeah, no, it's interesting that like here Netflix has left us hanging with the OA and so many other projects when a lot of what really propelled them maybe 10 or so years ago was them rebooting season or shows that got canceled from traditional like cable or network television. And of course they could go out to these companies oftentimes and get the rights to do another season where the OA is owned by Netflix. And so how often does a Netflix show get canceled but revived on another platform? I can only think of one example. Can you think of any?
I can't think of the one example. What are you thinking of?
Oh gosh. And I can't think of the name right now. And it itself was a revival. In the Life what was that called? Somebody in the Discord knows what I'm talking about. It's One Day at a Time. Thank you, Spectra. One Day at a Time.
Oh, that's right.
So,
yeah.
So it got rebooted, and it got rebooted by like I don't know, some obscure thing. Like what station like brought it back? Like Crunchy something? I forget even the name of it. I didn't follow it, but that's the only example I can think of. And even then, that came from a pretty powerful pedigree, right? Like you're talking like Norman Lear, Pop TV, yeah. So Norman Lear was able to get it moved. But so far, if the show dies on Netflix, it's dead, which is a bummer.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see Netflix ever really doing that. I don't know what the arrangement they had with the folks that, with One Day at a Time. I don't know the circumstances around why they let that go. I don't, who knows, but it's hard for me to see them letting go one of their original content to go somewhere else. So, but it would be nice.
I live, well, not to give too many personal details, but I live near Netflix headquarters, so maybe I'll go over there and I'll start up the Hunger Fast to get the OA back.
Yeah, let's go knock on the door, would you?
I will.
All right, Matt. Why don't you tell us? We're running long, so why don't you tell us what you have been watching?
What I've been watching. So okay, I was a theater kid growing up, so I'll start off with one of the big shows that I watched. Uh, and so I watched Tik Tik Boom. Have you heard of this?
I have heard of it. I have not seen it. Is it a movie or a show? I thought it was a movie.
It's a movie.
Okay.
So Tik Tik Boom is it's created by Jonathan Larson, and so Jonathan Larson is the creator of Rent, the Broadway musical. And if you're familiar with kind of the legend around Rent, is 35 years old. Jonathan Larson got Rent to off Broadway, and it was kind of his big break. But the tragic story there is that he died the morning of its first professional show. So it had been workshopped or whatever, but this was like its first off-Broadway production. And then it goes on to run on Broadway for like 12, 15 years and do national tours. And it launches the careers of like Idina Menzel and others. So just a real big piece in pop culture. And of course, because of his tragic demise, you always wonder like, well, what more is there? Well, a lot of his work was just never finished in a way that people could enjoy it. Unfortunately, he spent a long time working on a musical based off of 1984, but never had the rights to use it. And so then he tried to adapt his musical version of 1984 far enough away from the source material that he could use it. So anyways, we don't really have very much content from him in full form, other than a Broadway show that he, or a one-man show that he produced and starred in it called Tik Tik Boom. And it's a really interesting piece because it's basically about him trying to get this version of 1984 off the ground, and him almost like competing with his own idealism. So here he is, a young, talented musical writer, and he's comparing himself to Stephen Sondheim, who had his first Broadway show when he was like 27 or whatever. So you have like this legendary figure who wrote like an autobiographical piece about like, will I ever be successful? And we, the audience, now know that yes, he is successful, kind of. So it's this really fascinating musical, just kind of about the earnestness of like young talent in the sense that you're running out of time, and are you going to make it, and like this like bittersweet quality to it all. And kind of what's interesting is Larson really like, he's responsible for moving musicals away from kind of the Phantom of the Opera, like pop opera, into more of a rock opera, and really in many ways paved the way for Hamilton. And of course, Lin-Manuel Miranda was heavily influenced by Rent, and not only was he heavily influenced by Rent, but as he was working on, I believe on Hamilton, he actually did this show. He did Tik Tik Boom. He was in the stage version of Tik Tik Boom because after, of course, Rent's success, this show has been revisited and it's been adjusted over the time. So it was originally a one-man show, and then they kind of made it a three-man show. And so anyways, Lin-Manuel Miranda directs the film version of it. So we all know Lin as a composer and a lyricist, and Hamilton and Moana and the stuff that he did there. But to see him directing was really fascinating. And so it was kind of like these two musical influences that I, as a theater kid, really respect and admire, and to see the way that Lin pays homage to Jonathan by like not only producing like basically the only other work of his that we can produce, but also it being an autobiographical piece. I just thought Lin did a brilliant job, and the music was really good, and it stars Andrew Garfield as Jonathan Larson, and so I thought the casting was great, the production was great, and I think it's going to be an Oscar contender. I don't know that they'll win because the Oscars is so political, and you kind of have to earn your win, and so the odds of getting a Best Director right out the bat aren't strong. But there's a supporting actor in the show who plays Jonathan's like really good friend, and I think that guy, who was also in Hamilton, I think he really does stand a chance at bringing an award in for this show. One of the other fun things, just to like highlight, like if you're at all into Broadway, there are so many cameos shoved into this film. So at one point in time, Jonathan Larson workshopping his 1984 based musical, and so he's workshopping it in front of professionals, and Lin pulled in all these professional Broadway people, so like the guy behind Wicked and the guy behind or like the team behind Legally Blonde the musical. So just all these professional producers are sitting in a room playing producers and like composers, which I just thought, as somebody who was paying attention, that's a really sweet nod as they kind of pay tribute to Jonathan in that moment. And then the other really fun thing in there is Broadway actors also pay tribute in another scene. So there's a scene where they're in the diner, and when you start like looking around, like Bernadette Peters is in there, and just other kind of Broadway greats. So it was kind of this really lovely tribute to somebody who had a really limited body of work but left a huge impact on Broadway, and to see kind of the Broadway community paying tribute was really fun. So that's my very long sales pitch for Tik Tik Boom. It's on Netflix. You can see it for free. Andrew Garfield's great. The cast is great. It also has oh gosh, what's her name from High School Musical? Vanessa Hudgens. Somebody complete her name.
That's a name.
I'm just gonna start making up names. Yeah. So that's in it. So that's good. And then Fine Scotsman's happy that I mentioned High School Musical. There we go. So now he's gonna watch it. Watching. So that's like the high art thing that I watched. And my wife was miserable the entire time because she wasn't a theater person. But the other shows that I've been watching, Blown Away. Have you seen Blown Away on Netflix?
Blown Away. What is it? I don't think so. What is it? No, I have not. This is like a. Are you there? Did we lose Matt? Let me go look.
I'm here.
I hear you.
Okay.
Blown Away is like a reality show of like a competition for like glass blowing.
Glass blowing, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I haven't watched it, but I'm aware of it.
It was fun, and like you watch the show, and I was like, oh, I want to go blow glass. Because it was super expensive. So when I saw that they did a holiday edition, it caught my attention. And of course, they did the thing with all holiday editions where you either bring back past contestants or you bring on celebrities. And so, of course, this one they brought back past contestants. So it was fun to see them make holiday-themed glass art. And then they shook up the casting a little bit. And so one of the original judges came back, and then they brought in one of the Queer Eyes guys to cast. So that was like a fun little 4-episode miniseries that I thought was good.
Speaking of that genre of show on HBO Max, I want to shout out a show on HBO Max called Full Bloom, which is like similar to Bake Off or Blown Away, but this one revolves around like flower arranging, like making flower arrangements. which sounds kind of boring, but the show is really, really good. And some of the things they do are like big, like mega scale things. It's not always just like, it's not just arranging flowers in a vase, right? They do these things that are massive scale, or they do these kind of hanging installations, or they do these big arches, and they do all these really neat challenges that are so much more than just, playing around with flowers in a vase. It's really, really good. And if you have HBO Max, give it a chance. There's 2 seasons of it, and each season's like, I don't know if it's 6 episodes or something. They're not super long, but it's after Bake Off, it's probably my second favorite of this sort of genre of like kind of happy. It's not a real cutthroat sort of competition. It's, everyone's pretty friendly. Everyone helps each other out, and everyone is, more or less has a smile on their face the whole time. So if you have HBO Max, I can recommend Full Bloom.
Thinking of another HBO Max show in that same kind of genre, did you see Ellen's Next Great Designer?
I'm not a huge fan of Ellen, so I'm probably gonna pass on that. But is that kind of like is it Next Great Designer? Like what kind of designer?
Yeah. So it's furniture design, and honestly,
Oh,
I think it's the show. So Ellen doesn't host it, surprisingly enough. But she like pops in and is kind of around. But the host is actually Scott Foley. And so Scott Foley and Ellen are both kind of big into interior design and architecture. And so he's the host, and Ellen comes in for comedic things. And what's fun is they filmed it during like the height of COVID. So all these people are more or less quarantined. And so where like a lot of these shows, right, like you're making your flowers or you're blowing your glass kind of in the same space. Here, these these poor creators had to like build their furniture like in their homes, like studios around the country, and then fly their stuff out to LA for like the evaluation portion, which added like this really interesting dynamic. And then they of course stay in touch via phone and Zoom or whatever. But the actual show was really good if you can get around Ellen. And the show hasn't been announced for a season 2, and I think part of it is because of just the scandals and kind of Ellen has really lost her shine lately. But that would be a fun show, worth watching.
that
And it's
actually does
because
sound
it's
that actually does sound interesting. That's like um, something like furniture design and furniture production sounds like something that has a real quality of craftsmanship to it. And when you get right down to it, the allure of these sorts of shows are watching people that are really good crafts people at their whatever they're doing, whether it's flower arrangements, whether it's baking, whether it's making furniture or cooking. What you're really there to do is you're there somewhat for the personalities of the people involved, but you're it's just as important that the people doing it kind of know what they're doing, and that you can watch. It's always fun to watch people that are good at their job do their job.
when they're bringing in like high artistry. Like I don't know how many of the pieces produced on the show I would ever want in my own home. Like practically, like maybe if I lived in a home like Ellen, yes. Just like how often are we going to get a floral arrangement like on that other HBO show? Like none of us could afford it. But it is fun just to see like the creativity and the artistry that goes into these pieces as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
So I recommend that show. So there's your bonus. I haven't watched it lately, but it was good. I don't. Season 2 hasn't been announced. I don't think we'll get one, but it's definitely a good one season, and it's short. It's like 6 episodes, so that's a fun binge. And then I watched a little bit of Red Notice. I still have not finished Red Notice. It's fun. It's just I haven't committed myself to it yet. And of course, Red Notice is you got The Rock and you have Ryan Reynolds and then Gal Gadot. So good cast, compelling. It looks like a fun story. But I just haven't been able to sit my butt down on the sofa long enough to finish it.
Yeah, I definitely am not making that film a priority. A lot of the film critics and commenters that I follow have been kind of dunking on that movie, and so I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that at some point I'll peek at it, but it doesn't. I don't know. It's hard for me to get past. There's certain people that in the film, in the online film community that I trust and I listen and I value their opinions, and almost all of those people are like, this is a super like not, it's not a great movie. This is really a movie made for the masses, and they don't mean that as a compliment. It's kind of a movie made to appeal to everybody and not to offend anybody. And often when you do that, the product ends up being pretty vanilla and pretty, pretty unoriginal. And so we'll see. It's hard to say no to that group of actors, though. That's a pretty fun group of, the cast seems a lot of fun, and you'd be interested to see them kind of do their thing, but I'm not in a big rush. It doesn't sound like you are either, if you are kind of watching it in 15-minute increments.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a background piece, unfortunately. So, and I think part of it is also it's the wrong season. Like, I'm far more interested to watch Tik Tik Boom right now than I am Red Notice, where like Red Notice feels like it should be like a summer popcorn flick. So it just came out at the wrong time, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Kind of the only other show that I'm watching lately is The Floor is Lava, and that's because my son's almost 4, and the other day he started yelling like, "The floor is llama," and it took me a second to be like, "The floor is llama," and then I realized that he's playing The Floor is Lava, and so I thought he picked it up from his preschool. I found out today it was actually from his grandma. So I've been watching the Netflix show The Floor is Lava, which I think we have 2 seasons now of it, at least. And it's kind of a fun, like, wiped out style, like, competition show, where they send teams of 3 through a room that is flooded with lava. They have to cross from, like, one side of the room to another. And it's fun. And, of course, my favorite gimmick about the show is when somebody falls into lava, they have to fully submerge themselves, and then you never see them get out of the lava. So it's like, they were drowned, burned up into lava, which I don't know why, but there's a sick piece of me that just finds that super enjoyable. So we've been watching a lot of that, and my son has been yelling a lot of "The floor is llama," and then I just snicker and try to wonder, like, well, is it like llama carcasses? Like, like, are you not wanting to step on like rotting meat, or are you worried the llamas are gonna like bite you? Like, what's going on with this llama? So that's my other sick pleasure in watching The Floor is Lava. Have you ever seen The Floor is Lava?
No, I'm aware of it, and I know the concept, but I can't say that I have watched it.
One of those like fun, like, because every episode is standalone, right? Like, if you're just in the mood for kind of a fun, silly show, put it on for a single episode, and then you can like skip it for like a year or 2 before going back to finish it.
Right.
But they do a good job with it. It's like good production value, some good, like, the host is compelling enough. Yeah, it's fun. And I just kind of like the playful nature of it as well. So there's my recommendation.
The Floor is Lava, and that's on Netflix, right?
Netflix, yeah, which a lot of my shows are on Netflix this week.
Okay, so let's move on and talk about things that are coming up over like the past week, over the next week. Let me try that again. Things that are coming up this week. Some of the things coming up this week. Stop me if any of these are interesting to you, Matt. Masters of the Universe Revelation Part 2. That comes out tomorrow. On the 24th, we have Season 3 of Hannah coming out. That's on Amazon Prime Video. On November 24th on Disney Plus, we have Hawkeye. I imagine you'll be watching that.
I'll be watching that.
I'm going to let you tell me if I should watch it. Can you handle that? Okay, good. Also on November 24th on Peacock, we have Season 2 of Saved by the Bell. This is the remake.
Good one. They're dealing with Dustin Diamond's death. So that'll be interesting.
Are they really?
Yeah. So
okay.
Screech dies. Oh, whoops, spoiler. And so I didn't watch I don't think I watched more than a scene of the reboot. But of course, their story was that Screech and his robot Kevin, right, were up at like the International Space Station. So apparently something goes wrong, and so they're going to do a send off to Dustin Diamond,
What
which will just
is
be
this?
kind of interesting because Dustin Diamond, of course, is he was controversial in the years leading up to his death, and created a lot of drama for the cast. So I'm sure there's a lot of mixed feelings where he did not have a good relationship with the cast as it ended, but at the same time, he's an integral part of this giant movement in their lives. So I am a little bit curious to see um, how that episode handles the character of Screech.
Yeah, I watched the first episode of the first season, and I didn't actually thought it was pretty okay, but I wasn't compelled to keep watching it, so I didn't. On November 25th on Disney Plus, we have The Beatles Get Back. That is the Peter Jackson produced show, right? Are you familiar with that at all?
I was reading somewhere that like I don't know, there's like 3 episodes or something, and they were all like 174, 183 minutes. They're just like endlessly long. So they're movies, which kind of leads me to the question of like, can Peter Jackson like edit a movie down to like a proper like
Right.
length? Like, there's a piece of me that worries that like 2 years from now, even if this series completely flops, we're gonna get like the extended edition. Each edition is 8 hours.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I see it's like a 3-part series, and I saw the running times for all of them, and they're very long. I was shocked at how long they are. I figured it'd be like 3 episodes each, like an hour long or whatever, but each episode is like well over an hour, maybe even approaching. I can't remember. They might be 2 hours or more. Which is fine. The saying is no good movie is ever long enough, and no bad movie is ever short enough. So, if the content is really good, then I won't complain about the running time. But I hate sitting down to something, because I'm a bit of a completionist. So if I start something, I like to finish it. So when I see something has a running time of, let's say, 2.5 hours, then I feel like I mentally am committing myself to 2.5 hours, even if it's not great. So yeah, we'll see.
I'm a little bit concerned. It's one of my other like pet peeves is as artists um, get really successful, they're not as well critiqued or edited. So, like, Harry Potter, brilliant franchise. But as the series goes on, the books get longer and longer and longer. And frankly, as much as I think J.K. Rowling's a literary genius, that seventh book, you could have cut out the middle 2/3 and been just fine. And so there's a piece of me that worries, like here with Peter Jackson, he's so successful that nobody's going to edit him down and actually create a better piece of content because nobody will say no to him. So there's my critique.
Yeah, I guess I could nitpick at that a little bit, but we'll let it go. I'm not sure after the Hobbit stuff that Peter Jackson would be given another blank check like that, because I think the Hobbit trilogy did pretty well at the box office, but I don't think they were well reviewed, and I don't think that they spent a lot of money making those movies, and I'm not sure how much they made back on them. I'm sure they made money. I don't think they lost money or anything, but I do wonder if Peter Jackson isn't thought of as the Lord of the Rings guy, and not much more than that. Although his last movie was good. What was that called? Anybody help me out? Peter Jackson films.
So it looks like the Hobbit trilogy. So its budget was somewhere between 700 and $745 million, and its box office gross was 2.938.
Yeah.
So it still made $2 billion, minus whatever the cost of advertising the flicks were.
Yeah, and the split with the theaters themselves. Don't forget about that. So Peter Jackson's last film he directed. I was wrong. I was thinking of Guillermo del Toro or somebody else. Last movie he directed was a movie called They Shall Not Grow Old, and I couldn't even tell you what that. Oh, that's a World War One thing where he took World War One footage and remastered it and restored it or whatever. But I guess the Hobbit: The Battle of the Five Armies was the last thing he directed. So I don't know. His other stuff is not like great. Like if you look back at his filmography, he did King Kong, which I actually the 2005 version, which I actually thought was a pretty good movie, but I'm not sure how well it did overall. He did The Lovely Bones. I don't think that was a big moneymaker. He did The Frighteners back in 1996, and that wasn't a big hit either. It's really the Lord of the Rings stuff that he's really, hung his shingle on. So no, anyway, we're getting way off track. So the last thing I'll mention is that's coming out this week is November 25th on Paramount Plus. South Park Post-COVID, the TV movie, is coming out. So if you're into South Park, I think this will be the first of the South Park movies that Paramount Plus commissioned from those guys. I'm not super interested myself, but a lot of people still watch South Park, so certainly someone's interested.
Well, let us know if you're interested in South Park, and maybe we can talk about it next week.
Right. Okay, well, we've gone exactly an hour and a half, and I think that's plenty long. So for those of you who joined us live, we appreciate it. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for participating in the chat room. We really appreciate it. We really, really do want to thank you for being here live. It makes it a lot of fun, and we appreciate the interest. We'll be back next Monday at the same time to do this again. So until then, have a good one.